Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and in this video I want to talk about how to become a speaker and how to use speaking to sell more books and to grow your business. So I was doing an interview with Bob Burg recently on the Self-Publishing School podcast, and if you haven't heard of Bob Burg, he wrote an amazing book. It's called The Go-Giver. It's one of my favorite books of all time. We've used this as a book club book internally at Self-Publishing School multiple times. He's came in and did a Q&A with our team. The book is just amazing, and that interview is really good. So if you want to learn more about using speaking to sell books and to grow your business, definitely check out that interview. But he said this phrase that's just stuck with me ever since that interview. He said, you know, Chandler, I used to be a speaker that also did some writing, and now I'm a writer that also does some speaking. It was just a great way to say it, because I know a lot of writers who start speaking and they're a writer first, but then they also speak. But then I also know a lot of speakers who also write. And that's because the two just really go hand in hand. Like writing and speaking, it's just kind of this amazing loop or circle of the more writing you do, the more it feeds your speaking business. The more speaking you do, the more it feeds the book sales. And the more the book sales, the more it feeds the speaking. Like there's amazing synergies that happen because of this. So whether you just want to sell books, or whether you want to grow a speaking business, or whether you want to use speaking to grow your business and get leads, sales, and referrals for your business. That's what I want to cover in this video. So how to become a speaker and how to use speaking to sell books and to grow your business. So now the good news about becoming an author is that's one of the best ways to get started in speaking. So if you've already written and published your book, you've taken an amazing first step towards getting booked for speaking. Now, to do some speaking, you have to first become an authority on a subject. Well, guess what? The root word of authority is author. So by writing and publishing a book, you can get your foot in the door and get booked and paid to speak. So the easiest and best first place to start is to speak on the topic of your book. Right? You can use the book. Maybe you're sending books to conference organizers or event planners or all those things. And that's the best way to get your foot in the door. And then naturally, you already have a topic that you can speak on. Now, before you even do that, I want to back up just a little bit. And I want you to start with, why do you want to speak? So why you speaking? Is this strictly to build authority? Is this because you want to sell books? Is this because you want to grow your business? Like, what does that look like for you? I'd love for you to scroll down below this video, comment below this video. Why do you want to speak, right? Why do you want to become a speaker? I know for me, yes, books were part of it, but really I wanted to use speaking to grow my business. So I learned from a good buddy of mine, Pete Vargas. He taught me kind of a lot of fundamental things on this subject. I was like, hey, I'm going to use speaking to get leads, to get sales, to get referrals for my business, all those things, and to build authority in this space. And it's worked incredibly well. The first year I started speaking, we did a little over $1 million in revenue for Self-Publishing School because of those speaking gigs. I think I did 24 or so speaking gigs. I didn't get paid to do a single one of them, but I used those speaking gigs to get leads and to get sales for my business. I think we averaged about 42 grand in sales per speaking gig. So start with the why, and now we're going to get into the what. So how do you get booked for those first gigs? And then also, how do you use those gigs to sell more books or to grow your business? So in terms of getting your first gigs booked, I like to zero in on two concepts. Number one is what I call the rungs of the ladder. So I talk about this for getting booked on podcasts. I talk about this for getting booked on TV, speaking gigs, all those things. So it's kind of the rungs of the ladder. So you've got your C-level events or speaking opportunities. You've got your B-level and then your A-level. Now you've also got virtual and in-person, all right? So virtual, this might be webinars. This might be podcast interviews. This might be things like that. And then in-person is your more traditional, like this is an event. I'm going there to speak, all those things. So a lot of times what I'll do and what I recommend for, especially for speakers who are just starting out, is start local, okay? And start on smaller stages. So that's what I would call the C rung of the ladder. It's local. There are easier stages to get on. Maybe this is your local chamber of commerce or just local stage or something like that. That's the C level. The B level is kind of more regional. It's a little bit more difficult. Maybe this is an association. Maybe there's hundreds of people there, maybe even thousands of people at this conference. Maybe you can get a breakout room or something like that. And then there's A level. These are like the huge events and the coveted, kind of like everyone wants to be on these stages. So what I encourage you to do is start stacking some wins. Like my goal is to help you get your first win as fast as possible. And so along the way, that means getting some no's, but get your first win and really start with those local, easier stages. Let's get a win under your belt. Let's get a speaking gig under your belt. And then you can build on that momentum and get more gigs booked. All right. So now I want to move to the second concept in terms of getting speaking gigs booked. And this is what I call the 3 R's. Okay. So there's research, referrals, and reach outs. All right. Write that down. Research, referrals, and reach out. So the research piece, this is finding all the possible stages. So maybe you do a Google search on local stages in your city, in your county, all those things. And I want you to come up with at least 10, 20, maybe even as much as 50 stages that you could potentially get on. Then secondly, let's narrow this down a little bit. There's the referrals piece. Now, this is where I want you to find what I would call advocates. So who do you know that runs an event? Or who do you know that knows someone that runs an event? Or maybe who's a connection that can intro you to someone in your local area that runs some sort of speaking event? And I want you to list out 3 to 5 people. This is what I call advocates. All right, so these are people who will introduce you to others or introduce you to someone who can get you booked on their stage. And this is super, super important. And if all else fails, post on Facebook or maybe LinkedIn and say, hey, who do I know that runs a local event or maybe even an online event? And you can start there and start building a list of advocates. And then lastly, we get to the reach out phase, right? So that's reaching out and saying, hey, I'd love to speak at your event. Here's the topic that I think would work really well for your audience. And here's when I think you should have me. Hey, do you want to chat about this, right? So you're going directly to that. And if possible, you're getting a warm intro from one of your advocates. And that's how you get your first win. Now, once you get your first gig booked or your next gig booked, how do you use that gig to lead to more book sales and also to lead to more leads and sales for your business, okay? Now, I've got a separate training I'm going to tell you about in just a little bit. It goes really in depth, especially on this piece or this part of the process, and I could talk about this for a really long time, but kind of the basics and the fundamentals is number one, your talk needs to align with your book or your business, okay? So if you're speaking about a topic that is not related, your conversions are gonna be horrible. So you need to make sure that you're speaking on a topic that relates to your book, because then that leads to book sales, or relates to your business, because that leads to revenue for your business. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is you need to have a clear call to action at the end of the talk. So maybe you're not selling from stage or anything like that, but you can lead collect and you can say, hey, if you're interested in chatting about what it would look like to work together, find me in the back right after my talk, right? So we've got a clear call to action related from your event. Now, one kind of third bonus tip, this is one of my favorite examples. So this is Emma Sumner. She's one of our youngest students at Self-Publishing School. She wrote a book at 8 years old called The Fairies of Waterfall Island. And so it's a children's book. So yes, this works for fiction. Yes, this works for children's books, and especially for children's books. So she does speaking gigs at schools, so local schools. She just raised her fee from $250 to $400. And also as part of that, so on average, she'll make about $700 to $1,400 from a speaking gig. How? Well, this is exactly what she does. So she sends out little forms with kids ahead of time, and then they take them back to their parents. They buy a book ahead of time or on the day of her speech. So now all of a sudden she's selling sometimes hundreds of copies of her book, or maybe it's 50 copies of her book or something like that. And so she's selling books along with that speaking event, where the speaking event is largely around how she's written and published a book at 8 years old. It's informative, it's inspiring, all those things. So she can speak at a school and she can make hundreds and sometimes even over $1,000 from a speaking gig at 8 years old, okay? So if an 8-year-old can do it, then you definitely can as well. And this is kind of some practical implementation on how to use speaking gigs to sell more books. Now, I hope you found this video helpful in terms of how to become a speaker and how to use speaking to sell more books and to grow your business. I've got some awesome free training. So this is a 45-minute training. It's all about how to get clear on your hook. So what are you going to speak about? Also, how do you get your first or your next 5 gigs booked? So speaking gigs, publicity opportunities, things like that. And then, like I said a second ago, I'm going to go in depth on how to use those speaking gigs to generate revenue for your business or how to sell more books. So what I want you to do right now is scroll below this video. You'll see a link along in the description. register for that training right now. If you found this video helpful, I'm going to make a bold promise and say that that'll be the best 45 minutes that you've spent in terms of publicity, speaking, becoming a speaker, all those things. You're going to really enjoy that training. So scroll below this video right now, find that link, register for that training. I think that's going to be super helpful. And then also we have our PR and Speaking for Authors program at Self-Publishing School. So if you're interested in using speaking to sell more books and grow your business and being part of the PR and Speaking for Authors program, feel free to book a call with my team at self-publishingschool.com/apply. And we've actually got Sean, who's Emma's dad. He has some content in that program specific to exactly how Emma does that process. So how do they pre-sell books? How do they get speaking gigs at schools? How can you get speaking gigs at schools? All those things, that's in the PR and Speaking for Authors program. So if you're interested in talking with my team about what it'd look like to work together, all you have to do is go to self-publishingschool.com/apply, and you can book a call there right now with my team, or scroll below this video, find in the description, register for that PR and Speaking for Authors training. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you got some takeaways. Scroll below this video right now, comment below, let me know what were your biggest takeaways from this video, or how have you used speaking to sell books or to grow your business? I'd love to hear your tips and tricks and what's worked well for you. Scroll below this video right now. Seriously, take 2 minutes right now. Scroll below this video, leave a comment, and we read and respond to just about every single comment. So I'd love to hear your takeaways, your thoughts, and your tips, and all that good stuff. As always, click the like button on this video and click subscribe to this channel. So subscribe to the Self-Publishing School YouTube channel. We've got all kinds of other great content around speaking, books, publishing, stuff like that. And we've also got some really great interviews on the Self-Publishing School podcast. So if you want to learn from speakers, and a lot of which have used speaking to grow their business. So I mentioned Bob Burg. There's also Joey Coleman. There's so many other great authors and speakers that have kind of done both really well. John Gordon, like I could keep going on and on and on, but I highly recommend that you check out the podcast interviews over there, and you'll find some good ones that'll help you grow your author business, but also your speaking business, okay? So click the subscribe button, check out the Self-Publishing School podcast, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.